All right, well, this is going to be a video that really covers some tips on how to find good articles. I've started here on the APU Library page, as you can see, and there's a couple things that you can do that really will increase the number of good peer-reviewed articles that you have to choose from for your research project. To start off with, you can actually do a search for the articles and databases. So I click right here on the library homepage, and I go to view all databases, this little link within the text here, and that gets me to this page. So databases are, you probably know by now, repositories of, there's all kinds of databases that will hold links to articles, usually that have to do with a particular topic. Like this one is for English language and literature articles. There's all kinds of different ones, but I go down to G, or you can also go down to G right away by clicking the G right up front here, because what I like to use is Google Scholar. That just takes you down to the G's on the list. It looks like you came back up to the top of the page, but if you just scroll down here, you have it. And then you can click Google Scholar here. Google Scholar, I like to use it because it has an incredibly rich search engine, very robust search engine, and you can get to a lot of articles with this. The downside of having a robust search engine is that you get a lot of stuff you don't want, but you also get a lot of this stuff, more of the stuff you do want, and I'll talk to you about that. So I click Google Scholar now, and then it will prompt me to sign in. The reason it's prompting you to sign in is because if you go through Google Scholar, or if you go through the library link to Google Scholar, I should say, rather than just typing Google Scholar up here from the start, you sign in, and what that does for you, you'll see in a minute. What it does is it will actually give you links within your search to the library's holdings right on the page, and you'll see what I mean by that in just a minute. So let's say you want to do your topic has to do with the type of, it has to do with servant leadership in the classroom, let's say, something like that. You want to actually do usually you start with pretty broad terms. Do not put a ton of words up here. If you, let's see, if you can actually type it out. All right, servant leadership, and then classroom. So that you don't have to actually put words like and the or in the classroom. These kinds of words get deleted out of the search anyway. So really only the words that you would call content words are the ones that you really need to type in. So you go, and here you have a bunch of articles that you're going to see that have to do with, or that have these words in them. All three of the words have to be in there. Now, just because all three of the words are in there doesn't mean that it's going to be a relevant article for you. So you have to really cull your articles as much as possible. So once you get your results, here's a couple of things. Now, I want you to notice, see these APU Library Full Text Finder. Anything that the APU Library has in its holdings is going to actually come up here in the right-hand side. This means that you can get a direct line, basically, to these articles if you want. This is the reason why you go through the library homepage. All right, so a couple of things over here on this side. If you want to look at articles, let's say that were written since 2000, you really aren't interested in articles that are earlier than that, you can actually take this tool right here, a custom range, and you can say, okay, I want from 2000 to 2016, or even 2017 at this point. And you can also sort by the date so that you have the earlier or the more recent articles up top. So that's another way you can do that. You can disinclude, if that's a word, the patents. I don't, there's some people that are looking for inventions and things, so you can, this is include citation. So if they even have servant leadership and classroom in the citations, in the references, it will pull that up here in Google Scholar. So if you want stuff that's really only in the text, you would probably uncheck these two boxes, and then it will automatically rerun this search for those cases. Now, as far as the middle, what you see in the middle here, obviously these are the search results, but a couple things you want to look at as you're going along to kind of cull the good from the bad sources. Under the first, obviously you have the title here, and the title will give you some clue right off the bat as to whether this is something you might be interested in. But also you need to look at what you see in green underneath, because what you want to see is a word like this. This tells you the author, and it tells you the source here, right after the author. And you really want to be looking at journals that are peer-reviewed, things that, really anything that was published by an editor, by a publication that has an editor is okay, but there is a high level of preference in your work for peer-reviewed journals. And generally, you can tell by the title. It'll say something. If the word journal appears in the title, it tends to be peer-reviewed. You'll start to kind of get to know the names of the big journals, but honestly, there are hundreds and hundreds of journals. There's no way you will know for sure what any of them are, what all of them are. But journal articles are going to be preferred over books. Now, here's one that's a book. First of all, you're not going to have access to the entire book from this link. You'll have access to pieces of the book. You can actually do a search on Google Scholar. If they have a link to a book, you can do a search for specific words, and you can kind of see if there's maybe a chapter or two. Sometimes you'll have access to a whole chapter. So books might be okay, but you can probably, especially in your first pass, skip the books. Here's a journal. You can see this is more about higher ed though, not K-12, so you probably skip this one. This is a journal, Management, Administration, and Leadership. You can actually see journal right here, sagepub.com. This is actually a really good thing. After the title of the journal at the end, you see the source right here. And if it's a kind of recognizable publisher, Taylor and Francis, SagePub is certainly a big one. You'll actually get a sense, like this one, you can't really tell right here, for example. Well, this is a book. So the OLA group, I'm not really familiar with that publisher, but it is a book. So books are okay. Journal of Leadership Education is fine. You'll actually see a lot of these starting to pop up that are on Researchgate. Researchgate is a place where authors can put their own work online for others to see. It's often open access, so you don't have to have, a library that you don't have to go through a library to access their work. It's a way that authors are starting to promote their own work and trying to get more citations of their work. So Researchgate, it's hard to tell basically on Researchgate because any author can put their work up. You don't know whether it was peer-reviewed or not. So you really, on Researchgate, you really have to look more at the source in the middle here, the Journal of Leadership Education. One other thing you can see when you look at the authors, if an author has published more than one thing, they're going to have this underlined and there's going to be a link because you could click on this. I'll actually do that for you. You could click on this and you'll get a list of this author's work. So authors who have published a lot of work tend to be more reputable. So that's another thing that you can see. If it's actually, if the name is linked, like none of these are linked, this is likely pretty much their only thing there. But if they're linked, it's probably an author who's done quite a bit of work. All right, so Eric is another thing that's fine. Here's a journal. Now, if you see ProQuest here as your source, ProQuest is a place where people put up, where people publish their dissertations and master's theses. There are only some, for example, APU does not really publish master's theses to ProQuest, but all dissertations at really any institution of higher education, all dissertations are always published on ProQuest. So ProQuest can be a place where, again, like this one was actually an article that was published in a journal, and ProQuest is the thing, but since ProQuest also publishes all of those dissertations and those master's theses, you have to kind of look, again, it's kind of like with the Researchgate, you have to look at the source in the middle to make sure that you're not just, citing someone's dissertation or master's thesis. Dissertations and master's theses are not considered to be highly reputable. I mean, they have some value, and you do see them cited in quite a bit of work, but very sparsely. So, you pick up any article, you might see one dissertation that is cited, whereas, there's 120 other sources. So, like I said, you can cite from a dissertation, but if you do, it has to be the only one, and it better be like a really pretty robust dissertation. So, in general, I would say avoid dissertations, but in this case, even though it's from ProQuest also does regular things. So you're okay here. All right, I want to get to, so here we have journal. This is a book that was that same OLA group. It may be a paper, but it doesn't look like a journal article. Here's a journal, here's a book. This is similar kind of thing, maybe a paper or a book. This is a journal. All right, here we go. If you see a .edu address like this, it means that the source that we're talking about here is definitely a school paper. This was submitted to a educational institution. Now, some people will have great papers that they submit to their educational institutions, and sometimes those same papers are later published in a peer-reviewed journal. I have had things like that myself. So it doesn't mean that the source is bad, but in general, you want to wait until something is published in a journal before you are citing it. So really avoid any articles that come from a .edu address unless you see that they have also been published in a journal. Now, this one you'll see something that I have been kind of avoiding. There are, like I said, the title, you have this stuff in green, which I've just talked about. You have this piece right here in black. It actually highlights a small segment of the article where your words appeared, your search terms. So you can see this one, actually, I don't really see the word classroom here, but they put a bunch of, this was an excerpt that had servant leader and leadership and servant all in one spot. So they kind of take the cluster or a piece of the article that has the most of your search terms in one spot, and that's what they put here. And it's supposed to kind of give you a little bit of a clue as to whether you really want to use this article. And then there's this stuff underneath. Now, the stuff underneath is really interesting. It tells you how many other people have published items that cite this particular article or piece of writing. Now, this one, even though it's a .edu address, has been cited by 44 people. That's actually pretty good. That signals to me that they probably did end up publishing this because to have 44 out of a .edu address is really kind of crazy. So if that's in general, I mean, there's some topics that just don't get a lot of press, or a lot of people aren't really researching about them. So the citations are going to be kind of low in general anyway. But I mean, you'll see if you look up the page, all these cited by, cited by, cited by. You can actually use the number of times that something is cited as kind of a gauge for how reputable the article is. Now, you have to kind of think about this in two ways. Like, here's something that was cited 97 times, and it was it was published in 2004. This one was cited 127 times, and it was published even later in 2007. So this has gotten a lot more use as citations than this one. That doesn't mean it's better necessarily. Like I said, something can be great, just it's not in a topic area that's used a whole lot. But that is one indication. Now, if you want, you can actually look. Let's look up this 127. See, there's a link here. If you click on that, you can actually get to all of the articles that used the one before in their work. So this is a list of all those articles that used that as a citation, that earlier piece. And this can actually be a good way to find related articles. If you're having a hard time finding articles that you really like, take one that you do like, click on the people who cited it, or click on the link to see who cited it, and you might find, oh, hey, here's a bunch more that are looking at the same topic area. Now you can go back to your original one. And here's another thing, right next to the citations, there are related articles link. And if you click on that, it'll again take you to a bunch of other articles. The one that you clicked is always on the top, and then the related ones are next to it. And generally, that's a pretty good kind of way to get to articles that are very similar. The algorithm that pulls these similar related articles up, it's kind of similar to like how Amazon does it. You know, if you click on a book, it'll say, oh, people who liked this book also liked, and then it has the list of things. This kind of works off of a similar idea. People who clicked on this link and downloaded it tended to also download these other things within the same search area. So it actually does a really good job. In some ways, you're using other scholars' searches to determine what you want to look at. So, so that related articles link can be really helpful. You'll see there's sometimes different versions. Sometimes there's the version that was published, or published from the school, and then the version that was published in the print article, and then maybe there was a version online, or maybe there's a version in a different language, or different things like that. So that generally I find a lot less helpful. If whatever version you have tends to be good, so why do you need the other versions? But you can actually look. And then this also is kind of helpful. This gives you the full citation, and you would obviously want the APA. You can actually just copy and paste it, whatever you want to do. And then, but I will say that sometimes the citation that's given by Google Scholar is incomplete. Sometimes it's even wrong. I've seen, for example, the title in all caps. That's wrong. That's not APA. That's not according to APA guidelines. So you do have to watch these citations and make sure that they're correct. That is your due diligence. Google Scholar does not always get it perfectly right. In this case, this one is good. But you're just, and 90% of the time I'd say they are good, but you do get once in a while ones that are completely wrong. So those are my, and you can actually see too, oh, I need to go back to that. Down here, if you're using Refworks, which is a free service from APU, I do think you may, through APU, get a free subscription to Endnote. You can check that out. Refworks and Endnote both are great programs. And if you could get Endnote, I would say get that one for sure. There may be ways, and I'll investigate that and report. But Endnote is basically a program where you can put this information into the program. Sorry, I clicked too much. You can put this information into the Endnote program. You actually kind of create a little library of all the sources that you use. And then when you're typing on like Microsoft Word, you can actually, there's a little bar that comes up that is for Endnote. You can click on it and it will, you click on it and it pulls up all of your articles. You click on the one that you want. Or you can click a search bar and you can like actually just type in say, oh, hey, I want the one by Hayes. So you type in Hays. It'll pull this information up. It'll put it automatically cited correctly within your paragraph. And then it will also put it automatically in your references section for you, like completely, perfectly, wonderfully arranged. So you don't have to do anything more once you put this information into the Endnote program. Refworks works very similarly. I have found Refworks to be a little clunkier, I guess. Endnote is a little more smooth. It's a sleek program. Refworks is available for free a lot of places, and Endnote is pretty expensive most of the time. But I do believe that APU may offer it to all graduate students. I know they offer it to the doctoral students. That's the biggest thing. I'm not sure if if master's level students get it, but you look into it. And if Endnote is not available, I would recommend using Refworks. There's also a freeware program called Mendeley, Mendeley, that you can check out that works also very similarly. Another freeware program that a lot of people have had success with. I found it a little clunky, but some people really prefer it, is Zotero, Zotero. You will not get a reference that's downloadable from your Google Scholar site, but you can enter that information. Anyway, if you have Endnote, for example, you click on Endnote, and you can see down here, it actually gives you the citation that you can just like literally drag over to your library and gets added correctly into the library. So that can be very helpful. All right, so that's that. I've given you a lot of information there all at once, and you can go back and forth in the video to look at that. But those are my tips for looking through and getting articles that have to do with your area. If you do all of the things that I've talked about, look at related articles, look at stuff that was cited by someone else, all those kinds of things, and you are still stuck, the best thing to do is relook at your search terms. Are there search terms that are maybe similar, or use words that are similar, or whatever, that might garner more results? If you're having a hard time looking at or thinking of search terms, definitely text me, message me, whatever, and I'll help brainstorm with you on some good search terms. So that's it. I hope that was very helpful. I'm going to be posting 1 or 2 videos, every once in a while to help you along on your project here. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see ya, or I guess not see you. You didn't really see me in this video, but I'll talk to you later. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.